You're listening to the SweetLife Entrepreneur Podcast. Simplified strategies to grow your service business and launch a life you love faster. With business mentor and entrepreneur activator, April Beach.
And then, Brittany, I'm going to start recording on GarageBand right now too. So we have it in both places. All right. I am super excited, you guys, to be joined by Amisha Shrimanker. And when I saw her application for the show, I knew we needed her on here because she is a copywriting genius. And she helps those of you that are in the digital space really get what is in your head out into your sales page, which there's this huge hang up usually between what you want to say and actually how businesses are able to say it, how well they're able to execute. It is a big problem, and a copywriter is a must. I would say on every single strategic online business team, you need to have somebody with excellent copywriting skills. And frankly, personally, I am not one of those people. So I have people that do that because I already know that I'm one of probably the 90% of the people that are not great at this. But I think we can learn, right? And that's why we're kind of here on the show today. And Amisha's going to dive in. And today we're talking about how to write a high converting sales page in 5 steps. But before we dive into that, welcome to the SweetLife Entrepreneur Podcast, Amisha. I'm so excited that you're here. Tell everybody who you are and why you love doing what you do.
Sure. Well, thank you, April, so much for having me. It's great to connect with someone who loves digital marketing and entrepreneurship as much as I do. And it's evident in the content you produce because I've been binge listening to some of your podcast episodes. So a little bit about me. I'm a conversion copywriter and I write launch copy for online entrepreneurs. So whether you're launching a digital course, a membership site, or a coaching program, I'm your gal. Few things that set me apart from other copywriters, because there are a lot of launch copywriters. I bring my strategy skills to the table. I know how the overall funnel works. So with me, you get copy and my launch experience to launch your thing. I don't just write pretty words on your landing pages and sales pages. I really dig deep into research. So I find out everything about your industry, you as a person, as the creator, your clients. I talk to them. I stalk people on Facebook groups, find out everything before I write a single word of copy. And that's why the copy converts. And lastly, the other thing is I have an eye for detail. So a lot of copywriters, what they do is they write copy, hand the Google Doc over, but I go deeper than that. I like to see the finished result on a sales page. So tiny details like, hey, what do your bullet symbols look like? So if I was writing for a makeup course creator who I have in the past, their symbols, the bullet symbols could be something like lipstick, right? It's a tiny details, but it makes so much of a difference when you're kind of like trying to stand out there, because copy, your funnel is a package, is a sales and a marketing package. So it's got to stand out, not just with the words, but even with those little details. So those are 3 things that set me apart.
Wow. So you are the copywriting unicorn that everybody has been looking for. Just so you all know, you guys you can pause the podcast right now, go follow Misha at the Copy Crew on Instagram, and we'll of course make sure that all the links to connect with her are available to you guys in the show notes. So in this process that you have to help business owners, to help experts and leaders really launch and sell their programs, launch and sell their methodology, their zone of genius, and it's in their head, they already have a struggle. People struggle with even creating the actual program itself. So there's always kind of like this bigger picture we're looking at. They're creating their actual intellectual property into their program. That's one step. But then we need to take it down a step further and actually talk about it in a way that an audience that might be a totally cold audience that has never experienced this company before understands. So how do we do that? Guide us through these 5 steps to write a high converting sales page, especially now that we know how much more you bring into it than just a regular straightforward copywriter. I'm super excited for you to share these with us today.
Sure. So I have 5 steps, and the first step, really, the step that proceeds before any of these 5 steps is obviously do your research. So if you're writing for yourself, this should come a whole lot of easier, kind of, because you know who your avatar is, who's your audience. Mm-hmm. So when you've got that nailed, let's start with step 1. Step 1 is you need to know the 7 most important things before you write a single word of copy. And this kind of digs into that research. So the first thing is you need to know what's your one offer. Like, we're not selling a bunch of things on that one sales page. So this is kind of like, straightforward. What is your one offer? Is it a course? Is it a coaching program? Is it a membership site? So get clarity there. The other thing you want to know is, what is your one promise, right? So like, what is a specific promise that if your avatar or your buyer does everything you tell them to do, what is the outcome that you can actually guarantee? And that's important because you're going to write about that on your sales page. Every sales page offers a guarantee, and the guarantee kind of ties into the promise, the big promise that you're making. I see a lot of my clients who come to me and they've got an idea for this huge, amazing offer, like, oh, okay, we're going to do, it's a 30-day program. I'm going to tell them how to set up an online business. That's great, but what is the outcome? What is that one promise that after the end of 30 days, when they're done with the program, what are they going to get? Are they going to get a website that they can show off? Is it going to be a landing page that they can show off? What is it? So get clear on that. Third thing is, this is obvious, who's your one reader? Your one human being that you're writing copy to. Like, really know this person. What do they like? What are their 3 a.m. sweats? What gets them anxious, hopes, fears, dreams, all the good stuff. You want to know what is your one big idea. Now, this may be a little tricky to wrap your mind around and I'll give you an example. So say I had a client whom I wrote a sales page for because he was selling his Facebook ad course. And he wanted to kind of make this big promise. If you take this ad course, it'll help you scale your ad programs or, your ad campaigns, and it'll help you 2x your ROAS and, all that good stuff. And I'm like, no, you've got to lead with one big idea, like one promise, one thing that a person who reads it gets it. And here's the other thing. It's a pro tip. The more ands you have in your big idea, the more confusing it is for your buyer to kind of connect with you. So let me give you another example. So Nike, their tagline says, just do it. They don't say just do it and also have fun and also take care of your health, right? You'll lose someone there. So your one big idea is just this one tagline thing, one thing that someone can like instantly get it. And they're like, yeah, I get it. And I'm intrigued. I want to know more. So I'll stop there.
I love that.
Is your stage of awareness. Yeah, thank you. Then comes your stage of awareness. Like, how do you market to someone who's unaware or even problem aware is very different to how you market or write copy for someone who's most aware, right? If someone who is unaware, you're not going to write a sales page selling them something. You're going to give them top of the funnel stuff like a blog or a podcast episode and all that good stuff. But someone who is solution aware, has a problem, knows it, is looking for different solutions, has tried different things, they're an easier sell. So kind of your copy, follows that suit. The other thing is traffic temperature. Are you running traffic or are you running your sales copy to a cold, warm, or a hot audience? Know who you're running it to. If you're just emailing your list about your offers, it's an easier sell because your list, hopefully you've been emailing them consistently. They know you, like you, and trust you, right? So it's easier. But if you're running sales page to a Facebook ad campaign and it's all to cold leads, they don't know who you are. So you kind of have to like build that rapport at the beginning of the page. Last one, the 7th one, is your unique value proposition. What sets you apart from others in your industry who are offering the same thing or similar thing to a similar audience? You kind of want to set yourself apart. Know that what that one thing is and kind of like go double down on that in your sales copy. So that's step 1.
Okay, so just to recap. So for those of you guys who are listening, this alone, we could do like 2 podcast episodes on this. This alone is a huge training, you guys. And so if you get nothing out else, not that you won't, you're going to get a ton of value because that's what we do here. But if you take away, if you can remember anything out of this episode, I want you to remember step 1. Come back to the show notes. I will make sure these are in the actual show notes of the episode for you. This is gold, you guys. I have been in business. I've been a business strategist for 24 years. I've been coaching entrepreneurs and experts for 24 years. I've never once heard anybody explain it like this on a sales page. So I'm telling you, like, pause this, replay this, these 7 things, the 7 most important things of going through and outlining your sales page. You know, literally take this to the bank. And we're going to go, this is step number 1. These 7 things are within step number 1. Again, sweetlifeco.com for the show notes for this. And we'll make sure all of Amisha stuff is linked in there for you too. But just pause for a minute and saying these 7 most important things are your offer, your promise, knowing who your reader is, knowing, you know, being able to articulate clearly and simply your big idea, the stage of awareness, where people really, when they come to your page, what sort of solutions are they looking for, whether or not they even know they're even looking for a solution, your traffic. I mean, are these new people? Are these people that know you at least in some capacity? Who's actually landing on this page? And then, of course, your unique value proposition, which is always the fun part of figuring out who, you know, how your business fits within the landscape of the rest of your market and your niche. So I just wanted to just pause for a second and say that is incredible and incredibly powerful. So although it's only step 1, I don't want people to overlook that. Okay. Yeah. Now let's continue on. Step number 2 to writing a high converting sales page.
So step 2 is where you use the golden ratio of sales page copywriting. And I use this because it slashes writing time, it reduces blank page syndrome, and you can just overcome perfectionism. Even as copywriters, we get this, you know, we do wake up with this like, oh crap, I have this Google Doc in front of me, it's blank, I don't even know where to start. So here's a trick. So what this means is, as you start, you know, you should start writing your sales page from the introducing section. You know, that part where you're like introducing and then you know, announce your offer and the name, and then you kind of like dig into like, you know, number of modules, or these are the benefits and these are the features. I would say start your sales page right from that point, which is, you know, midway down the page. And this section and everything else that follows below is mostly logic based. And, you know, in fact, I don't know what studies this is, but it was discovered that a lot of people who are familiar with a particular product or the creator will jump straight into this introducing section to find out, you know, what's included in the course of the program. So it's kind of like its own mini sales page where you give the breakdown of the modules.
I'm that person. I'm like, just tell me what's in here, girl. I just want to see. I could care less about anything else. Just give me the meat and potatoes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's super fascinating. And then tips to actually start with that in, first of all, understanding what you're selling, having an incredible signature program, service, or offer, and being able to articulate it. But how else do you recommend people kind of execute this step number 2?
It's just so, you know, from the perspective of someone who's creating the course, you know your course very well, right? You know the outline, you know what is step 1, step 2. So you kind of like go into that, you write that, and then you can go the other, because this is more logical based. It's funny, it's easier to write something that comes logically natural to us, sort of like, you know, hey, this is what my course is, and we know what our product is, so we can go on and on talking about it all day. It's easier to do that than to switch tracks and kind of like, you know, talk about your reader and their problems and the agitation and all that stuff, which really happens at the top of the page. So when you're at this part of the sales page, you talk about the benefits and the features. You talk about the most frequently asked questions, like, hey, is this course for me? And you kind of know that if it's for you or not. You anticipate that, you can write that out easier than, you know, anything else, which you're talking from the perspective of emotions. Does that make sense?
Totally, 100%. So how do you define what the golden ratio is?
That's a very good question. So the golden ratio, I like to look at a sales page, is the 80-20. 20% is really everything from the introducing section, everything down below. So that includes introducing, calling out your offer, talking about what it contains, the FAQ, who is right for this program or offer that you're creating and who isn't, the guarantee, is there a guarantee, and the closing section. These are more logical based elements of your sales page, easier to write. So this is the 20%. The 80 is really where you're, starting at the hero at the very top, which is your headline. You're talking about the problems this, your avatar has, the things that they've tried. You're kind of crushing their objections. So it's more emotional blocks, crushing objections, getting into the mind space of the avatar. So that's where 80% of your efforts should be dedicated. And that takes a little bit of time and, also comes with a little bit of practice too. The more you know your industry and your avatar, it gets easier with time. But this is more like an exploration into what really goes on into your avatar's psyche and, what's going on in their head and those emotions. So that's the 80%.
That's so fascinating. And I love this approach because I think it's so much easier than you were saying, just looking at a blank page and just saying, okay, I have to come up with this copy here, but really starting with the deliverables within the program and the facts and the things that are not so much emotionally based. It's just black and white. Like I said, like here's the meat and potatoes. This is the deliverables. This is what it is. This is who it's for. So what a great way to overcome that initial, not even writer's block, but just such overwhelm that I know a lot of business owners face and really figuring out how to start creating this content. So that is step number 2. So what is step number 3?
Sure. So step number 3 is where you are writing your sales page. You are not, this is the part where step number 3 is where you go back and write everything else. And you're writing your page. You don't edit yourself here. After your 20% is done, you're going back and you're going to write your headline, your hero section, your body copy. You're going to follow a framework. There's a sales copywriting framework, and there are a lot of frameworks, but the one I particularly like, and I talk a little bit more about it in my program, it's called PAS, Problem, Agitation, Solution. And, you write everything that you know about your avatar. This is where your research comes in handy. But what I find often is a lot of people want to edit everything they write. Like, they'll write something and they'll want to edit it because, hey, this doesn't sound grammatically right. Or how can I make this more sexier or, more alive with personality? That doesn't really work like that. Just write. Don't worry about editing because the editing will come. Write what you want to say first, then clean it up on how you want to say it. And the how is really your personality, and it's really kind of like cleaning up the grammar and all that stuff. So those are later steps. So write, and then come back and clean it up.
So don't even think about it. Just dump it all on the paper. Put what you want down there. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to make it sound, better than it is. It was really funny. I came across an article it was a graphic on LinkedIn about how new entrepreneurs try to use really big words in their sales copy and really confusing and, like you were saying, sexy wording, and how it was actually a really funny graphic, but it actually showed that like the percentage of their success actually giving people results is like 90% less than just the person that's just putting out the basic sales page there. It was like the educational level of people that try to use big crazy words that, to prove they're further along than they are. So you guys don't need to do that. We're going to talk about how to get your personality in here in just a minute and the other steps, but just write the dang copy. Write what you know about your program, write what you know about your people, and just write it all out. So love step number 3. There's no judgment. There's no grade on how well you did this paper, if you will. It's just writing it all out. Okay. And then step number 4 is really, then getting back in there and talking about editing that sales page. You're talking to boost conversions. What does that really look like for our writers?
So next comes the editing process. Like you said, I use Grammarly to edit my work. I also have an awesome copy editor who understands my client's voice. So when we get to work with clients, I have this other ninja trick, which when I tell clients, it blows their mind. Like, hey, you know what? I can write exactly in your voice because I have it down to a science. I have tools to kind of like really understand what you sound like. and how you write, and if you use long sentences, short sentences. Are you writing at grade 3 level, grade 4 level? You don't have to be that ninja, but you can analyze your own writing voice when you're using these tools. So I give that kind of a brief overview to my editor, like, hey, we've got a client, she writes grade 3 level, she writes long sentences. That doesn't mean that you don't edit it because you want to make it punchier. So she writes at this level. She kind of has this optimistic overview of in everything that she does. So like if you're like Marie Forleo, who's like, her tagline is everything is figure outable. For example, she's optimistic, she's cheery, she's happy. I do work with some clients like who talk like that and have that personality when they write their emails or their newsletters. So we kind of take that and I give that briefing to my editor saying like, hey, this is how she writes. So you want to kind of like have that zing factor onto the sales page. So use Grammarly. That's, it's a great app to edit all your work, the paid version. If you can get a copy editor, excellent. There are lots of amazing copy editors out there who will, edit your copy, cut out the jargon. You don't want to write jargon into your sales copy unless it's some of the words that your avatar, your audience already understands, but you don't want to be too heavy with that. Obviously grammatical errors, you want to correct that. You don't want any of that stuff. I'm known personally to write a lot of personality-based copy in the work that I do to help my clients, kind of reflect their quirks, bring it out into the copy. So my copy is alive with that. It's not as dry, but I kind of like, try to get that from the clients. Like, hey, how much humor is okay? Can we use GIFs in your copy? Do you swear in your copy? All that stuff. And last but not the least, you want to also do what my copy mentor, Joanna Wiebe from Copy Hackers does. She uses what is called the 7 sweeps of clarity. And I'm just going to quickly go through what these are. Number one sweep is clarity. Above and beyond, you want to make sure your messages are clear so they're not confusing and long-winded. Number 2, you want to check for voice and tone. Does your copy have appropriate tone? Is it angry? Is it happy? Is it hopeful? And this goes in with your messaging and your personality. The third thing is you want to ask yourself every time you read a line of copy, so what? And our reader never has to read a line and wonders, so what? So what if she's telling me to do this? Or so what if she tells me this is how I feel? So for every so what, you want to kind of like have that so that you can because, and kind of like have that explainer copy. The fourth sweep is the prove it. And, where every point is supported in some sort of proof. If you're making a claim that using this Facebook ad ninja strategy, you're going to get 2x ROAS, you want to back it up with some proof. Very important because you will lose someone's trust if you can't back that up on your sales page. The other thing is how specific is your copy? Anything that's vague messaging, if you're reading your copy, needs to be replaced with something specific, like think numbers, think in terms of quantities, sizes, emotions. Can you paint a picture, make it interesting, make it more specific, right? Like the whole thing, just, show, don't just tell. And then you want to look at your copy and check if it has feelings, if it has emotions. Do you think reading something will kind of compel the reader emotionally? We want to do that because copy, it feels like it's an art, but there's also logic and there's also emotion. Do you want the reader to feel a certain way to take that action? And then the last thing you want to do is have the 0 risk. What that means is, have I given my reader everything they can today to take me up on my offer and that there is no risk involved? Meaning you have to have a guarantee. So you want to look at these 7 things. And I know this seems like a mouthful, so I'll just recap. Grammarly or an editing app, copy editor, if you get one, and the 7 sweeps, also called the Greek sweep or the 7 sweeps. Check for clarity, your voice, the answer to so what with every line of copy you read, prove it, whatever you're writing on the page, you need to prove it and back it up. Specific, be specific, don't be vague. You want to make sure your copy has emotion. And last but not the least, can you back up with a strong guarantee. So there's no risk for your reader and they trust you. I know that was a lot.
That's, I mean, again, there's just there's so much gold in this episode, you guys. This is going to be one of these podcasts that people come back and, we have a handful of those they come back to and they listen to it again and again and again, because they're really going through the process of training it and learning how to do this. There's so much information. So I just appreciate you being so generous. A lot of podcasts you go on, people are like, well, I'm going to tell you 3 things and then, and I'm going to leave you hanging and unless you work with me. I mean, you're really just pouring so much into our listeners, and we love that. And that's what we do here on the show. And I just appreciate you so much for this. It's definitely not too much. We're all sponges here. So bring it on. We listen a bunch of times. So, and that kind of ties into your final step. That it is, that's really well said in the final step, that's bringing in your personality into your writing. That is kind of that 5th step of creating high converting copy on sales page that's really going to increase sales and increase profit. And what's so cool in listening to this is a lot of times, we work with companies that sell and they sell really well, but they don't take the opportunity to really make sure that who they're selling to is actually the people that they really want to be working with. So they might find out that they're even incredibly lucrative, or they have, hundreds of people in their course or their membership. But it really isn't that person that the founder, the leader, the teacher really wants to be connecting with. And so I love also that what you're saying is that it isn't necessarily just going to increase the ROI of the sales page, but it's really going to, what we always want to do is disqualify at the same time as pre-qualifying people into our program. And I love everything you said, because I can see how that is just naturally part of the process, interwoven into how you write copy, how you recommend people write copy on their sales page. So I appreciate that as from a business strategist standpoint, making sure that our listeners are not only selling, but they're selling to the people that they really want to be selling to. So is there anything else that, our listeners really need to know as far as, generally speaking, the psychology of writing great copy? I think it's really scary because a lot of people aren't great writers, and then they really aren't great sales copywriters. So what else can you share with our listeners, just an encouragement, just to kind of wrap this up, put a bow on it here at the end, just encouraging them in the direction? Maybe it's not encouraging them. Some things we shouldn't always do everything ourselves as leaders. There are some things that I hire out because I know I suck at it. And as a leader, we might just need to identify, hey, you know what? This is not your area of expertise. Hire it out, have somebody else do it for you. What can you leave our listeners with, and really deciding how to move forward from here?
Sure. So I would ask you this. Copywriters come in all kinds of budgets and all kinds of price tags, of course. If this is your first launch, if you've never launched before and you're on a limited budget, you could learn how to write your own copy. It is not next to impossible. In fact, I do have a little program that teaches people how to write copy, your own copy. It really takes you step by step, right from the headline all the way down to the closing argument. And we talk about everything and how you can use the personality section of how you can pump up the copy with your personality, your quirks, because people want to not just know and trust you, they need to like you. The copy has to be engaging, like you rightfully said, and you can do that. You don't have to sound dry and corporate-y and sleazy. So yeah, I would recommend that you could do this on your own. It's not next to impossible. The other thing is, if you are if this is not your first launch and it's a live launch or it's an evergreen webinar launch, for example, there are a lot of moving parts in the funnels. There are 10 to 20 emails. There's the landing page. There's a webinar registration. There's so much of stuff, and I can keep going on and on. If that is overwhelming, and if you have a team to support you with the tech and the marketing, great. And if you can afford a copywriter to come on board and kind of take over and say, hey, you know what? I can write all this for you. Hats off to you. Do that, because a good copywriter won't just write the copy, but they will even interview your customers to find out what they feel about you and what they have to say. And sometimes I've given that to my clients, and the recorded conversations and survey data, and they're like, wow, I just got an idea for a new product I never even thought of unless you would have interviewed my clients. And that's like, it's a huge deal. Like, ask yourself, when was the last time you did a market research survey or even talked to 10 of your clients or buyers? If you haven't done that, a good copywriter will do that. Package it as a deliverable and give it to you like, hey, this is what your clients want from you, and this is what they're saying, and this is what they desperately need. They just don't know it yet. And if this sparks up product ideas, here you go. And you know what? You just 10x your return on investment.
Right.
So
true. Love that. And how can people find you? So I know that you have something you're going to give our listeners here that's really going to springboard them to get started in the right direction. But also, I want to make sure that we're going to put in our show notes to a link to this Write Your Own Copy program as well. So wherever our listeners are, they can connect with you. So how exactly, we'll put it on the show notes too, but where do people find you, and what is this tool that you are giving to our listeners as a bonus for this episode?
Sure. So I have a website, thecopycrew.com. You can find me there. I'm also on Instagram with that same handle. The free gift that I have for your listeners today, it's called the ROI Sales Page Outline. It really tells you, it gives you a sales page outline, what you need to do first and what you need to do last. There are like 15 to 16 sections of a sales page that you gotta have if you're writing for a digital course. And the paid offer that I have, it's a $37 course. It's how to write your own sales page. It's called
Are you serious?
The ROI Sales Page.
You only charge $37 for that? Oh, you guys, everybody should go grab that right now. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Okay, we'll make sure there's a link to that in the show notes for this as well. So finding you at thecopycrew.com, we'll make sure a link to this ROI sales page. Worksheets are all there for you, as well as a link to this Write Your Own Copy $37 course. You guys, even if it's not for you, maybe somebody on your team, that would be an investment that I would certainly recommend as a CEO. Amisha, thank you so much for all of your time today. I have loved having you on the show. I have so many notes here. If you guys are watching this video on YouTube behind the scenes, you should see all my chicken scratch notes here on this piece of paper. I'm real old school like that. And we really appreciate your time and your expertise. Really not holding anything back and pouring just incredible wisdom and training and high level business and copywriting strategy into our listeners. So we just appreciate you so much being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Sure, we'll be connecting again soon.